Single mom opened the door for her blind date, then froze when he whispered, "My son are in the car." "Hi, my son is in the car." The words came out soft, almost hesitant, but they hit Mary like a tidal wave. She stood frozen, her hand still resting on the doorknob. Her lips parted as if to say something, but no sound came out. Her heart, already thumping from nerves, now pounded for a different reason entirely. 5 years. It had been 5 long, lonely years since she had last heard that exact sentence. But it was not the words alone that paralyzed her. It was the way Luke had said them. The same gentle cadence, the same pause before the word car, the same awkward, tender uncertainty her husband had once carried when speaking to her. The last time she had heard those words, it had been a rainy Tuesday. Her husband, Mark, had leaned into the doorway, his dark hair dripping, his voice a whisper drowned in thunder. He had smiled sheepishly, brushing water from his coat. "My son is in the car," he had said, referring to their newborn, sleeping peacefully in the back seat. That was the last time she had seen him alive. Now, standing in the soft, golden glow of her porch light on this crisp autumn evening, Mary's mind was suddenly no longer here. She was back in that memory, the weight of loss pressing down like a forgotten winter coat. The pain swirled up, uninvited, like a ghost knocking once more. Luke cleared his throat gently, mistaking her silence for uncertainty. I hope that's okay," he said. "I can, he's fine. He's got his tablet, and I didn't want to cancel again." Mary blinked rapidly and stepped back from the memory. She forced a polite smile even as her hands trembled slightly at her sides. "No, it's fine," she said, her voice just above a whisper. "You just surprise me." Luke nodded, awkward but kind, with an air of someone trying his best. He had a neat coat on, gray with flecks of fall leaves still clinging to the hem. His eyes were gentle, searching hers with concern. "If it's too weird, we can reschedule. I just didn't want to leave him with a sitter again. He's sensitive." Mary shook her head quickly, clearing her throat. "No, I understand." What she did not understand was why her hands felt cold, why her spine tingled with a feeling that was not quite dread, but not comfort either. She had agreed to this blind date after weeks of coaxing from her best friend Lauren, who had insisted it was time to let someone see your smile again. But now it felt like she had stepped into a memory with flesh and bone. "Would you like to meet him?" Luke asked gently. Mary hesitated. She was not sure if it was politeness or something deeper that made her nod, but her feet moved before her mind had fully caught up. They stepped down the wooden porch steps together. The driveway was quiet, the trees overhead rustling in the soft wind. Luke's car sat under the faint halo of the street lamp, and through the window Mary could see the shape of a small boy in the back seat. The child did not notice her at first. His head rested lightly against the fogged window, eyes unfocused, as if staring into a world far beyond the street lamp and autumn leaves. A soft hum, broken and breathy, drifted from his lips. Mary stood frozen, her heart lurching in her chest. Tears prickled behind her eyes. The boy's hair was a soft brown, curling slightly at the ends, and he cradled a well-worn stuffed bear against his chest, its fabric thinned from love. His small fingers moved rhythmically over the bear's ear in time with the melody. His face, pale, delicate still, was turned slightly away, but even so she could see it, the same angle of the jaw, the same fluttering lashes. It felt like watching a memory through glass. Luke stepped beside her and gently opened the car door. The sound stopped abruptly. The boy's gaze flicked up, wary but calm. He did not speak. He did not smile. He simply watched. Mary's breath caught. She wanted to speak, but no words came. "Liam," Luke said softly, crouching down beside the seat. "This is Mary. She's a friend." The boy blinked once, then looked away, resuming the silent hum, though it was fainter now, more internal, as if retreating into himself. Luke stood and looked at Mary, puzzled. "Is something wrong?" She shook her head slowly, swallowing against the knot in her throat. "That song. The one he was humming. Luke tilted his head. He does that sometimes, just hums, mostly when he's calm or tired. Is it from a movie or something? Mary stared at him. No, it's not from a movie. It's something very personal. Luke's brow furrowed, but he did not press. Would you like to come inside? She asked, her voice barely steady. Luke nodded. Are you sure? No, she said, but I think I need to. She led the way, her mind spinning. Each step felt surreal, like moving through someone else's life. Liam followed behind Luke, small steps measured and precise. He clutched the bear to his chest and glanced at the house without curiosity, as if he had already been there in a dream. Inside, the warm lighting cast soft shadows across the wooden floors. The faint scent of cinnamon still lingered from the candle she had lit earlier. Mary caught herself adjusting the hem of her sweater, heart still racing. Luke gently helped Liam out of his jacket and hung it neatly on the hook near the door. The boy said nothing, looked at no one, but his eyes scanned the room in slow, methodical movements. Would he like something to drink? Mary asked quietly. It usually only drinks water, Luke said. Thank you. Mary nodded and disappeared into the kitchen, her fingers trembling as she filled a glass. When she returned, Luke was guiding Liam into the living room, motioning him toward the couch. But the boy did not sit. Instead, he turned away from them both. He walked. Small, quiet steps carried him across the room, past the bookshelf, past the framed photo of Mary and her late husband on their wedding day, past the coffee table, the floor lamp, the fireplace, straight to the piano. Mary stopped breathing. It was an old upright, its black lacquer slightly dulled with age. She had not touched it in months. Years, maybe. It had belonged to her grandmother, passed down like a family secret. It was the same piano she and Mark had used to write lullabies during their short time as parents. The same piano where Starry Lullaby had been born. Liam reached out, placing one small hand gently on the ivory keys. He did not look at either of them. His fingers hovered for a moment, then slowly lowered. A single note rang out, then another, then another. Mary covered her mouth with both hands. It was not fluent, it was not perfect. The rhythm was halting, uncertain. But the notes, they were right. One finger, slowly, carefully, tapped out the exact pattern of the chorus. The rise and fall, the shift to minor. The way the last note held a little longer, as if pausing to breathe. Luke stared, stunned. I didn't know he could play. He can't, Mary whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. That song, it's called Starry Lullaby. Mark and I wrote it for our son. Luke turned to her slowly, the realization just beginning to dawn in his expression. But Mary was not looking at him. She was watching the boy, and trembling. The sound of the final note still echoed in Mary's mind long after Liam had stepped away from the piano. He had returned to the couch, silent, distant, folding into the corner with his bear. Luke sat nearby, visibly rattled, watching her cautiously. Mary stood in the doorway of the living room, eyes fixed on the black and white keys. 1,000 memories stirred like autumn leaves in a storm. There had been a time, not so long ago, when music was everything. She had once been Miss Mary Bennett, the beloved music teacher at the local elementary school. Her classroom had been filled with laughter, tambourines, and sticky hands pounding piano keys with glee. Parents had praised her patience, her joy, her gift for bringing life to notes on a page. But that Mary was gone. Back then, she had been married to Mark, a high school art teacher, with warm eyes and paint-splattered sleeves. They had fallen in love over coffee and Bach sonatas. Their tiny house was always full of music, even when they had nothing else. When she found out she was pregnant, it felt like a crescendo. They had written Starry Lullaby late one night, Mark strumming an old guitar while she played soft chords on that very piano. It was never recorded, never shared. It was meant only for their child, a private promise of love and protection, whispered in notes and harmonies. The baby came early. The delivery was hard, but he arrived breathing, crying, alive. They named him Caleb, For 3 days, the world was perfect. Then came the drive home. It was raining. Mark insisted he drive, but Mary wanted to feel normal, like she was strong enough. They never made it back. She remembered the blinding headlights, the shattering glass, the way Mark had shouted her name and reached for her just before the world went dark. She awoke in the hospital, dazed and bandaged, asking for him. Gone. As for Caleb, the doctor said there had been complication, respiratory failure. He had survived the crash, but only for a few hours. They said they did everything they could. Mary never saw him again. The nurses had encouraged her to rest, promising to bring him later, but when they came back, it was only with sorrow in their eyes. They told her his little heart had stopped, and hers broke with it. She stared. In the days that followed, she asked for the body, but the hospital said it had already been transferred to the morgue and processed. Too quickly, it seemed, too efficient. But grief does not question. Grief simply buries. She let them take care of the details. The funeral was closed casket, just a white box and a name. She quit her job 2 months later. The piano went silent. Now, standing in the same house with a boy who had just played the chorus of a lullaby no one else should know, Mary's world tilted. She moved to the couch, sitting slowly. Luke watched her, searching her expression. "That song," he said finally. "He has hummed it since he was little. I thought he made it up." Mary looked at him, eyes sharp with something new. Where did he come from? Luke hesitated. "The hospital, 6 years ago. I was volunteering with a friend who worked in admin. A woman came in, young, scared. She said she could not keep the baby. She never gave her name, no ID. She just left him." "And they let you take him?" Mary's voice was tight, disbelieving. "No, not like that," Luke said. "I started visiting him. I knew I couldn't have children, genetic condition. I'd already looked into adoption. After a few months in the system, the social worker asked if I was serious. I said yes. I went through everything legally." Mary blinked, her thoughts racing. "No name? No papers?" Luke nodded. "Nothing. It was like he appeared out of thin air." Mary stared at Liam. He sat perfectly still, rocking his bear slightly, a child so quiet, so full of music, a child who played her lullaby with one finger on her piano. What are the odds? A woman with no name, a baby with no birth certificate, a lullaby no one else could have known. For 5 years she had lived under the weight of a funeral she barely remembered, a baby she never held again, a hospital report she never saw with her own eyes. Was it possible? Could her son have lived? Mary's breath caught. A wild, impossible thought took root, blooming in her chest like fire. What if they were wrong? What if Caleb never died? What if he was sitting in her living room? Mary waited until Liam was distracted with his coloring book on the living room floor. Luke had stepped outside to take a phone call, and the afternoon sunlight poured in through the tall windows, painting golden stripes across the carpet. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached down and picked up the small brush resting beside the couch, one of the soft ones Liam used for his stuffed bear's fur. A few strands of brown hair clung to the bristles. It felt like stealing. She told herself it was for the truth, for peace, for answers she had buried 5 years ago. She slipped the brush into a sealed envelope already tucked inside her purse and pressed the flap closed with a deep, steadying breath. The DNA kit had arrived 3 days earlier, delivered in a plain box with no label beyond her name. She had hesitated, letting it sit unopened on her nightstand for nearly a full day. But then she remembered the lullaby, the piano, the look in Liam's eyes. She remembered how her arms had ached to hold him that night, even though he was not hers. Or was he? She mailed the sample the next morning. In the days that followed, Mary found herself seeing Luke and Liam more often. She told herself it was coincidence. Luke dropping by to return a book she had loaned him, or to bring Liam over for a playdate with the neighbor's son. But the truth was, she wanted to see them, to be near them, to observe the boy she could not stop dreaming about. He was quiet, always, but never withdrawn. There was a gentleness to him, a strange attentiveness, like he noticed things most children ignored. He never asked for much. He never made demands. When he smiled, it was small and fleeting, like sunlight slipping through clouds. And Luke was kind, unassuming. He never asked Mary to explain her reactions that first night. He never pressed her to define the strange tension between them. Instead, he simply showed up, and, more than once, stayed to help. One afternoon, Mary came home from the grocery store to find Luke in her front yard with a toolbox in hand. He was kneeling beside her old upright piano, which she had dragged onto the porch years ago when it stopped working, unable to bear the thought of throwing it away. "What are you doing?" she asked, startled. Luke smiled sheepishly, wiping sweat from his brow. "I found a video online about restoring antique pianos. Thought I'd give it a try." She blinked. "Why?" He shrugged. "You looked like you missed it." She opened her mouth, but no words came. No one had ever done something like that for her, not since Mark. By the time he finished, the keys no longer stuck, the lid lifted without creaking, and the sound, though far from perfect, was alive again. When she touched the keys that night, her fingers shook, but the notes rang out clean. He had given her music back. She wanted to say thank you, but instead she invited them in for dinner. Liam sat quietly at the table, eating chicken and rice with tiny, careful bites. When Mary offered him a second helping, he looked at her with wide eyes and nodded. Later that evening, as she washed the dishes, she caught her reflection in the kitchen window. Her cheeks were flushed, her heart felt full. But then came the whisper of fear. What if the results came back positive? What if Liam was hers? Could she take him away from the only father he had ever known? The thought tore at her. She had lost her son once, horribly, tragically, and now, the chance to reclaim him felt like a miracle. But it came with a price. Luke had raised Liam, loved him, protected him. He was not just a placeholder, he was a parent. Mary dried her hands slowly, watching the silhouettes of Luke and Liam playing with blocks on the living room rug. They looked like a family. She stepped closer, her hand resting on the edge of the doorway. And yet, in the depth of her chest, something stirred. A longing, fierce and primal, stitched with guilt. Could she love Liam as his mother, without breaking his heart to do so? The answer, she feared, was not simple. The envelope arrived on a quiet Thursday morning, plain and unassuming. Mary's fingers trembled as she sliced it open. Her breath caught somewhere between hope and terror. She read the first line once, then again, then a third time. Her knees gave out and she sank to the floor. Probability of maternity, 99%. Liam was her son. Her son. The air left her lungs in a single, broken sob. She pressed the paper against her chest and wept, harder than she had in years. The sound came from somewhere deep, a place untouched since the funeral she barely remembered. She wept for the years lost, for the lullabies left unsung, for the first steps she never saw, the birthdays she missed, the pain, the joy, the everything. When she finally stood, her heart was a fragile glass barely held together. She called Luke. His voice was steady at first, then disoriented. "Are you sure?" he asked, sitting across from her that evening, the envelope unfolded on the table between them. "I am," Mary said, wiping her eyes. "I sent it to 2 labs, same result." Luke stared at the paper, his brow furrowed, lips parted in disbelief. This is impossible. You're the Mary I matched with through the app. And Liam is your son?" She nodded, unable to speak. He looked away, eyes filling with something unspoken, grief maybe, or awe. "I always knew he wasn't mine. I mean, biologically, but I never imagined—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "Of all the people in the world." They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of the moment anchoring them both. Eventually, Mary said, "I want to know what happened. I need to understand how this could have happened." Luke nodded. "Then let's find out." Together, they dug through the archives, old files, hospital contacts, everything they could legally request. Most doors remained closed, but a retired nurse from the maternity ward agreed to speak with them. It was she who told them about Elise Hartley, a woman who had worked the night shift 6 years earlier. Elise had lost her own infant son shortly before that shift, but returned to work days later. No one knew how unstable she had become, until patients began filing quiet complaints, misplaced files, switched bassinets, subtle confusion that, on paper, looked like human error. But some nurses suspected more. One night, Elise vanished. Later, she was found in another state, arrested under a different name for trying to abduct a child from a hospital waiting room. Elise was never formally linked to any wrongdoing at Mary's hospital. The case was buried. Nothing was ever proven. No one wanted to be liable. But the truth now stood in front of them. Elise had swapped the babies. Mary's child had survived. And for 6 years, he had been raised by a stranger who loved him deeply. She could not decide whether to scream or collapse. That night, Mary asked Luke if she could spend time alone with Liam. Luke agreed. She took Liam for a quiet walk through the neighborhood. The leaves had started to fall in bursts of gold and orange. He held her hand without prompting, his small fingers cool and still. She did not say much, neither did he. When they returned, Mary sat on the couch and opened a photo album from the drawer. Pictures of her and Mark, her pregnancy, the nursery. Liam wandered over slowly, curious. She pointed to a photo of Mark holding a tiny bundle in his arms. "That was your dad," she said softly. Liam stared. She turned the page. A picture of her, radiant in a hospital gown, holding a newborn against her chest. "That's you," she whispered. "That's the day I met you." Liam reached out and touched the page with one small finger. Then he looked up at her, eyes wide, glassy, and then his lips parted. A whisper, so faint she almost missed it. "Mama." Mary's hands flew to her mouth, her chest shattered all over again. She pulled him into her arms, holding him like she had dreamed of doing for 5 long years, her tears falling onto his hair. He pressed his head into her shoulder, the bear wedged between them. She wept, not out of grief, but because something broken had found its missing piece. Mary stood at the kitchen window, watching the autumn wind chase leaves across the yard. The air was colder now, the days shorter, yet her heart had never felt more full or more torn. The DNA results had changed everything. What had once been a quiet, strange connection had become something undeniable, powerful, and irreversible. Liam was her son, her blood, her child who had been lost and now was found. But what did that make Luke? She could not stop thinking of how gently he brushed Liam's hair behind his ear, how he kept the boy's favorite bear patched and clean, how Liam relaxed when Luke entered a room. Luke was not just a caretaker, he was a father. Now Mary had to choose. She had spoken to lawyers, the law was clear. With the DNA match and Liam's birth certificate finally confirmed as altered, she could petition for full legal custody and likely win. But would that be justice? That morning, Luke had arrived quietly, as usual. He handed Mary a small bag of Liam's things, extra socks, a drawing he had done, a bag of cereal Liam liked. Then he looked down, hands deep in his coat pockets. "I think it's time," he said. Mary's chest tightened. "Time for what?" "For me to step back," Luke said. "He's your son, Mary. You deserve to raise him. I was just holding a place." "No," she said, shaking her head. "You were raising him." Luke offered a small, broken smile. "I think I always knew there'd be a day like this. I just never imagined it would come like this." He looked toward the living room, where Liam sat quietly coloring on the rug. "He deserves the mother who sang that lullaby," Luke said. "He deserves his beginning." Mary's throat burned. Luke turned, preparing to leave. He walked slowly toward the front door, his steps heavy, like each footfall weighed 100 pounds. Mary stood frozen, torn between gratitude and panic. Then it happened. Liam looked up and saw Luke walking away. He dropped his crayons, scrambled to his feet and ran. "Dad?" he cried. The sound stopped both adults cold. Luke turned, stunned. It was the first time Liam had ever called him anything close to Dad. The first time the boy had said a word with that much force, that much pain. Liam ran to him, wrapped his arms around his leg, and began to cry. Mary had never seen him cry like that, not even when he scraped his knee or had a bad dream. This was raw, real, a child's heartbreak in its purest form. She could not breathe. Luke knelt down, arms around the boy, whispering something Mary could not hear. She stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Stop." Luke looked up, his eyes red. "I can't do this," Mary said, tears brimming. "I can't take him away from you." "You are his mother," Luke said. "And you are his father," she replied. Luke stared at her. She continued, voice stronger now. "I lost him once. I am not going to lose him again. But I'm not going to make him lose you either." Liam looked between them, his small face wet, confused. Mary knelt beside them, reaching out. "We'll figure this out. Together. He doesn't need one of us, he needs both." Luke hesitated. "You mean?" "I mean, stay," she whispered. "Not because it is easy, not because it is normal, but because it is right." Luke looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he nodded. Mary reached for Liam, and Luke helped guide the boy into her arms. She held him close, pressing her cheek to his soft curls. Luke rested a hand on Liam's back. They sat like that for a long time, one broken family quietly beginning to heal. Their mornings had become a little chaotic, a little messy, and absolutely beautiful. Liam now woke up to the scent of toast and the sound of Mary humming in the kitchen. He would wander in sleepy-eyed, his bear tucked under one arm, and find Luke already making coffee while Mary packed a lunchbox with carrot sticks cut into tiny stars. It was not a perfect household. Dishes sometimes piled up. Luke occasionally forgot which day was library day. Mary once burned an entire tray of muffins because Liam asked her a question and she started crying mid-sentence. From joy, but it was theirs. The living room was no longer a quiet, haunted space. It buzzed with Lego towers, stacks of picture books, and tiny socks left under the couch. The piano, once untouched, was now part of the daily rhythm. Liam gravitated to it with a strange instinct, pressing keys, softly at first, then more confidently as the days went on. Mary, after months of hesitation, had finally applied to return to teaching. When the school board saw her resume and the letter she had written explaining her absence, they welcomed her back without question. She started teaching part-time, afternoons filled with shy voices and off-key recorders. It felt like breathing again. Liam began attending a center that specialized in working with children on the autism spectrum. The staff there, patient, warm, and endlessly creative, helped him communicate in new ways. He still did not speak much, but when he did, it was purposeful, meaningful. And sometimes he would hum always the same song, Starry Lullaby. Luke and Mary found themselves growing closer, not through grand romantic gestures, but through everyday quiet kindness. He would bring her tea when she stayed up late writing lesson plans. She would leave notes in his work bag, reminding him he was not alone. They never forced what they were becoming. They simply let it be. One night, the wind howled through the trees as a soft rain tapped at the windows. Inside, the fire flickered gently in the hearth. Liam sat at the piano, his small fingers resting on the keys. Mary and Luke sat on the couch, watching him. And then, without prompting, without looking up, Liam began to play. Starry Lullaby, from beginning to end. His hands, once timid, now moved with confidence, almost reverence. The melody was clear, achingly familiar, each note landing like a drop of light. Mary pressed a hand to her mouth. Luke reached for her other hand and she let him. As the final note echoed, Liam turned slowly. He looked at Mary, and for the first time she saw it, not just recognition, but a knowing, a memory, a connection. She stood and walked over to him. He slid to the side of the bench, making room. Mary sat. He placed her hand on the keys. Then he began again. Together they played, and as they reached the chorus, Mary sang, her voice low, steady, trembling only slightly. "Close your eyes, my darling star. Dream of skies both near and far." Liam joined in with a hum. Luke wiped at his eyes from the couch. And Mary did not cry. Not this time. She sang the lullaby that had once broken her and now stitched her back together. She sang for her son, for her husband, for the family she had lost and the one she had found. And for the first time in 5 long years, her voice was whole. A year had passed. The seasons turned quietly, wrapping their small family in a rhythm both new and healing. Hard days still came, moments when Liam withdrew, or when Mary woke from restless dreams, but more often their home was filled with warmth, laughter, and gentle music. Mary and Luke learned to parent side by side, not as a couple in the traditional sense, but as partners in something deeper. They built a life on patience, trust, and quiet understanding. On the first warm Saturday of spring, they packed the car for their first real family outing, a picnic. Liam waited by the driveway in his dinosaur hat, clutching a small cooler of snacks. His beloved bear peeked from the zipper. "Blankets?" Mary asked, tying back her golden braid. "In the back," Luke replied. "And the bubble kit's ready." She smiled. "Look at you, prepared for anything." "Years of practice," he said with a grin, buckling Liam into his seat. The boy gently touched Luke's cheek, a small, trusting gesture that said more than words. They drove an hour to a quiet park surrounded by blooming trees. Mary laid out the blanket beneath a tall oak. Luke unpacked sandwiches. Liam darted across the field, arms stretched like wings. Mary pulled a slim folder from her bag. "You're really submitting it?" Luke asked. She nodded. "Already did. I just wanted you to see it too." It was an essay, the lullaby that found its way back. In it, she wrote about losing her son, about the lullaby no one else should have known, and about the man who raised him with nothing but love. Luke flipped to the final paragraph and read aloud. "I didn't lose my son. I just had to take the long way home to find him, alongside a man who never gave him life but gave him a father's heart, unasked for but freely given." He paused. "You really wrote that?" Mary nodded. "Every word." He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Liam returned from the field, face flushed, hair tousled, holding a dandelion in one hand and a stick in the other, both precious in his eyes. "The playground!" he shouted, pointing. Mary laughed and stood. "Go ahead, sweetheart." Liam raced ahead. Just before reaching the edge, he turned and waved with all his might. Mary waved back, her golden hair catching the breeze. Luke glanced at her. "You okay?" "I think I finally am," she said, eyes still on their son. They stood there together, quiet, content, hearts full. Some stories do not end. They simply begin again. Thank you for watching this heartwarming story of love, loss, and rediscovery. If it touched your heart, made you believe in second chances, or reminded you of the quiet miracles that surround us, please like, share, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories. We bring you emotional, true-to-life tales that heal, inspire, and remind you that even in the darkest moments, love always finds a way. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change your day or your life. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of the human heart.